All right. Uh, in today's session, in the path to the MOA, we have a special guest, Master Padraig Du McKeer. Sorry,
MacEanruig.
Macquarie. I'm so sorry. Um, it's a great pleasure. Like I said in many of the previous shows that we normally don't record, but this is the first time we're going to be recording. So please bear with us. um, in this particular case, um, the whole purpose of this Path to MOA that we started was to help educate other kingdoms and people that don't normally follow the path of the Master of Arms. And and this is mostly a Q&A discussion to understand why people decide to follow that path. Um, and there's a lot of questions about it or taboos, and I'm trying to get rid of those taboos. And that's the whole purpose of this questionnaire. Um, Master Padraig, please introduce yourself.
All right, I am Master Padraig Du MacEanruig. I come from the Kingdom of the East on the South Coast. I've been in the SCA since 1990. When I first came in, my wife and I was elevated in 96 to the Master of Arms. And I come from House Silver Dragon, which was the household of Master Pharaoh von Halstern, who was called the Kingmaker in the East.
He's a very popular man,
Mm-hmm.
very legendary. And tell me about your persona.
My persona, I'm Norman Irish by birth, but I'm an exile. So I ended up having to leave Ireland. I ended up in the First Crusade, and instead of going back home afterwards, I ended up in Spain. And my group, the Freehold of River Keep, we're all returning First Crusaders that never went home. So what we do is we hold a fuero charter from the King of Spain. We hold an area on the border between the Moors and the Christian kingdoms. And as long as we hold it and fulfill it, we get to keep the land.
And within the SCA, what are you known for, or what do people recognize you as besides as a master?
Well, I was in the 2000s. I was either Marshal 1 or Marshal 2 at Penzic 8 times. So a lot of people know me as the Marshal running Penzic, probably more than anything else I've ever done. I didn't set out to do that, but it just ended up that worked out that way. So it's pretty much what I did for like 10 years.
And what is your, and I always ask this to all the fighters, what is your fighting style or your power move?
Oh, I tend to be a counter puncher, being left-handed. I fight with a round shield in a world of kite shields here in the East Kingdom. For melee, I also fight pole, spear, great sword. Primarily known for great sword. And, did a lot of studying and a lot of work on great sword. When I first came in, it was my very, very first form. So I kind of got known for that. But most people recognize me if I'm on the field. Usually it's a glaive because I'm in command somewhere in one of the Northern Army units. So you want to know what my big finish move is?
Yeah.
I would say my power move is usually a backhand. I have a very, very, very fast backhand. And I was very well known because I'm only like 5'5". I am actually the smallest member of chivalry in the East Kingdom. I was known for jumping up and throwing that really fast backhand and hitting people in the eye.
Oh, okay. So you kind of blind them a little bit. Um, Besides your elevation as a master of arms, what are your greatest achievements that you're most proud of?
Uh, I think in the SCA, some of the things I'm proudest of, I was involved in getting combat archery going in the East and keeping it going, not letting it become its own culture, trying to keep it all like involved as part of the army. You know, not letting it happen like I'd seen it happen in other kingdoms that had combat archery before us. I was also instrumental in we started Siege in the East Kingdom. And I was one of the marshals that got siege weapons going in the East. So I'm always like on the edge of when you want to start new things. For instance, when I was Earl Marshal, I went out and got qualified in everything I could, except for equestrian because my yard is way too small for a horse.
So you brought up a good point, culture-wise, or starting its own culture. What do you think that is?
You're talking about combat archery, I'm assuming. In well, some people they come to combat archery because they feel they can't get on the field, they can't fight any of the other weapons forms, so they tend to become their own little group. And then on the other hand, you've got the people who are getting hit by the arrows, kind of feeling like they have a distinct advantage, you know, because they get the hit from so far away. And so they kind of look down on them, which is a very medieval mindset, you know, to look down on the archers when, you know, when you're a man of plate. But my upbringing in the Northern Army is we were always about combined arms. We always have been. You know, we work on triads, and we work on, you know, where spears go in the line, you know, and how you set up for different battles. So for us, bringing in archery, we were comfortable with it as part of the unit. So, like in my unit, all my archers, like most of my archers, are heavy first, and then we shoot crossbows. You know, I have been in Penzic on the edge of a bridge because if I'm in command of the bridge, I'll bring a crossbow and my glaive with me, and I use the crossbow either to kill people or it becomes my medieval pointer when I'm trying to point to where I want an attack to go. I'll shoot into that area so that my sub commander sees what I'm talking about. And you know, it's always fun because you'll get people that will break out on the end of the bridge and they see that, you know, I'm standing over there with the crossbow and they're running up on this, I'm going to kill me an archer. You know, and I drop the crossbow out of bounds and I pick up my glaive and then I kill them and they look at me like, but you're not an archer. And then I kind of point to the baldric and go, yeah, you don't necessarily get this for archery. My other stuff too. And then I pick up my crossbow and go back to shooting people again.
Nice.
Because I'm a master at arms. We fight everything. You know.
So, what is your opinion in terms of combat archery? Do you think they should be part of the order of chivalry?
It's a weapons form. So, I guess if you can reach a level of prowess with it, which means you wouldn't be making shots from 65 feet away. I mean, if you're willing to jump in and make shots, which I've done from time to time. I get yelled at by a king once because I jumped into the middle of the line and shot him across the line when he threw a spear shot and jumped out and giggled. And I got yelled at for giggling because I killed him. But it was the shot that I got off that I was happy because I didn't die. That's what I was giggling about. Nobody hit me. It wasn't so much that I killed the king. He was a good friend of mine, but I was just happy that no idiot managed to get a shot in on me while I jumped out with just a crossbow into my line. So I guess, I mean, if you could get somebody that's willing to do that all the time and they can duck, move, get shots, and get out, they get my vote. If they're in there and, they're changing the course of a battle just by that one person, I wouldn't have that much of a problem with it. But it's going to be hard to get a lot of chivalry to look at it that way.
Yeah.
Because you have the chivalry that, okay, it's all melee, and then you got the other half of the chivalry that look at, oh, no, it's going to be all personal progress in single, and then you got most of the rest of us that are kind of in the middle of it.
What would it take for even that to be recognized?
Well, like I said, you would have to be a little crazy, because you would have to get into that front line and really, really mix it up. You'd have to be the guy that, again, you look at that members of chivalry that on a bridge battle, that one guy that will just, when they're not making the push, will jump out there and kill 2-3 guys quick and change that course of how that battle dynamic's going there and get them, let's go, let's charge now. You have to become that person. Because they don't fight it in singles. I mean, we do contests, we do box shoots and things like that, but you're only shooting at the other archers. So, and I think as more and more Shiv take to the bow, the bastards of us that will, shoot a crossbow at another Christian knight, damned by the church, but I'm still alive. He's not.
Yeah, but there's enough Saracens out there you can shoot.
It's true, but they're quick.
I do think, I want to add on that we could see somebody get elevated primarily on their prowess with a bow, but they would have to at least convince the rest of the order that they didn't look stupid with all the other forms. I don't ever believe we will see a pure archer get promoted.
No, I agree. Very rarely do you see just a pure spearman get promoted.
Yeah.
It'd be the same thing. It's a reach game, so.
Yeah, them 25-yard spears.
So, what made you decide to be a master?
I can't hear you.
What?
Didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. What made you decide to be a master instead of a knight?
Well, for me, a little knowledge was a dangerous thing. When I came into the SCA, that fall, we had been to King Richard's Fair, and my sword brother and I were walking around, and we had made, what we call in the SCA garb, and it wasn't like Renwear. We had made like medieval stuff. My wife, my kids, himself and I were walking around, and he and I were just standing around having a beer, and a lady walked up to us and said, "Are you Scadian?" It kind of sounds like an insult, when you don't know what they're talking about. We're like, what? And then she started talking about the SCA and the combat, and I remembered reading about it when I was like 14 years old in a copy of my boy's life I had got when I was in Scouts. So then I knew what she was talking about. So what we did is we went home, this is how long ago it was, get a hold of the library, find the organization, write a letter, real letter on paper, Then they sent us stuff, we ordered the publications, and I sat, when we read the publications. So a little knowledge was a dangerous thing. So when we found out where a practice was, I walked into my first practice, and the night marshal there was like, "Hey guys, what do you do? What are you here to do?" And I said, "Well, I've come here to become a master at arms by force of arms." And he's like, "Shh, you don't say that. You don't say that." I'm like, "But why? I'm going to do that. That's what I want to do." So my big mouth wrote a big check that my little ass had a cash. So that was my primary reason. And then as I got more and more into the culture of the East, and especially the northern part of our kingdom, and I met more and more of the masters, and I met the knights, and I got along a lot better with the masters than I got along with the knights. So that was the second reason. And my persona would never be a knight in Spain. I'm not from there. I'm not a noble family. We're Caballero Villanos. We're just mounted non-shiv. So I would become a master at arms. And the other reason I give people is because I come from New England, and we had a real king once, and he kind of turned out to be a putz, and we got rid of him, and we're not sure we want another one yet. So those were my reasons for becoming a master at arms.
Now, do you see a difference between a master and a knight?
Well, back early, when I first started, there was a big difference between the masters and the knights. A lot of the knights, at least in my area, tended to be a little more standoffish. They were the knights, and you were just, that filthy guy in carpet armor that happened to be on the battlefield. And the masters were more inviting, more welcoming, and especially, my master Farrell, because he was, the founder of the Northern Army. You want everybody into your army. So it doesn't do you any good to treat people like crap, and then you want them on the field for you at Penzic. So you get them on the field for you at Penzic by being good to them at this event, pull them in, get them into a unit, teach them something, and have a beer with them afterwards so that they like you and want to stay. And that's pretty much became my philosophy in being a master is, I never left the trenches. I'm still in there with the guys shoulder to shoulder, and I'm not this great guy over here that's shiny on a horse. I'm dismounted with you, and we're gonna take this breach. Let's go. Follow me.
So, what does it mean to you as a master within the SCA? Like a teacher, a mentor? What does it mean for you?
I have found that most of the masters, we tend to be teachers. We tend to, get in with the people, go up at a practice, go up to somebody, hey, let me show you this. And want to teach them is not like, hey, this is what I do, and this is the only thing you can do. This is like, let me show you this. Like, see this other guy here? He's built kind of like you. So why don't you try doing this? You don't necessarily have to fight exactly the way I do because you're not my size. But this other guy is more like your size. I don't know. I always found that we tend to be great students of fighting, as opposed to guys that go out and they're just sluggers. We're more boxers. We tend to think about it a little more and plan it. And like for myself, the house I came from, we were heavily into melee and teaching units to excel at melee and work together. So that that's what I find. I've always found that we do tend to be more teachers. And my favorite character in the book Men of Iron, when I read it at 14, was the teacher. The teacher that made them the clubs so they could go beat up the bigger kids, but not kill anybody.
That's so cool. So here's the $1 million question. What does fealty mean to you?
Fealty to me is a very, very personal thing. I myself, I do swear fealty. Matter of fact, it was funny because after I was elevated, one of the knights that had been elevated just before me, who actually came to my elevation, which was in a snowstorm. It was about 6 inches of snow fell that morning. Another 6 fell before we left. It was a very northern knighting for me. In fact, they washed me down in fresh snow. They didn't use water. So they took about half my skin off with it. And he looked at me and he said to me that I am the new style master. And I looked at him and I'm like, what makes me different? He says, because, well, he said, in your heart, you're a knight. But your persona is this rough fighter type. And you'll swear fealty where most of the older masters would never swear fealty. I'm like, well, I swear fealty because if I feel you've earned my fealty, then I'm going to give it to you. But if I don't think you've earned my fealty yet, or you've earned my ire, not my fealty, then I'm just not going to give it. That way, I don't have to do something I don't believe in.
Because of your chosen path as a master of arms, have you ever been discriminated or faced hardship because of it?
When I've traveled outside of the East, because in the East and in the North we were a large number at one time, I found it was different. When we first we had a war with Atlantia that went on for years, and then when I was Earl Marshal, I would have to negotiate and go plan it and run it with them. You know, and I would find like they kind of give me like that stink eye look, you know, because I got my belt on crooked. But it was kind of funny because about 10 years later, those same dukes that I had dealt with that first time, I'm walking across the street at Penzic and here's somebody call, Your Grace Padraig. I kind of stop and look around because I want to know this guy that's got the same name as me that's a duke. I want to spot him. And I'm looking around and I realize the four of them are looking at me. And I said, are you talking to me? They said, yeah, Your Grace, we're talking to you. I said, I'm not Your Grace. I've never won a crown, never mind two. They said, really? And they're in their little, you know, southern accents. They're like, really? Because, you know, you carry yourself like a duke. We always thought you were a duke. I said, well, I'm not sure if that's a compliment or an insult, but if it's a compliment and you could become duke by acclaim, I'll take it.
Oh man! So
Well, my son is running for. My son, because he traveled in the military, ran into it more than I did when trying to tell people who his father was. Because he would be stationed all over these little groups that he'd run into. He'd go to a fight practice and, you know, he'd be talking to them. They're like, oh, you fight really, really well. Where do you come from? And he'd say, oh, where he comes from. He's like, oh, you know, when'd you learn to fight like that? He goes, well, you know, my father, you know, taught me growing up and, you know, he's a master of arms. And I'm like, oh, yeah, is he good enough to get knighted? And he's like, no, he's a master of arms. Like, yeah, but, you know, like, could he get knighted someday? Is he that good? And, you know, and then usually he has to find like a senior member of chivalry, like, can you help explain to these people, you know, what these things are?
Yeah.
He had to explain it a lot more than I did over the years.
Wow. So before I move on, I want to open up the forum, and I know there's Master Crone present here. I'm going to open it up and see if you have any questions for Master Padraig.
Oh no. So how do you guys justify Ajax in Farrell's line?
How do we justify my squire brother in Farrell's line?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a knight.
Because he's Ajax or because...
Yeah, okay, fair cop.
Because he was my squire brother, so...
Oh, I know.
We used to walk our egos around Penzic together.
There was room for another one with him?
Yeah, he had to stand on either side of the street.
Right,
and we would bounce our egos off each other. That's how we get along so well.
No, he's a great guy.
He is. He's interesting. He's interesting to get to know.
He's just down the road, so.
Yeah.
But how do we justify him in the line? I'm not quite sure what you meant by that.
Oh, just, you got all these nice masters, and then there's this knight. It's
Well, no.
always disconcerting.
Also, now you have to understand. In Silver Dragon, we have knights,
Huh?
and most of them all came from one little household years ago, and they were known for their atrocities on the field. And Ajax was the young kid that, hey, mister, can I hang with you guys? I was with these guys, who are also my, squire brothers, and they all became knights. And we call them dependent knights. That they had to become knights because of what they did to make up for their crimes. But deep down inside, they're just filthy masters at arms.
Well, the other thing is, Master Padraig was showing me his chain, which is really nice.
Oh yeah, this is new. I gotta show this off. That's right. Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome.
So my squire brother, Master Llewellyn, was a great artisan. Just made it. I'm gonna get it closer so you can see. They're silver dragons, all hand
nice.
wrought, and there's 17 of them. And this chain represents the 17 chivalry, the sons of Pharaoh. And he just made this, and I was the first one to be gifted it in an event we just had a few weeks ago. And we each now have to go to an event and pass it on to another one of the sons of Pharaoh, so that we all get to wear it at least once.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea and creating that history. So that's pretty cool.
In the East, it's a very historic household. We've had a lot of dukes that came out of it. Some of them multiple time dukes, and then there's the rest of us that just slosh along with the rest.
So,
try not to bring the cume down.
So, do you have any squires at the moment?
Do I have squires? I have 13.
Wow. So, do you?
Matter of fact, my 13th one was Saracen.
So, do you recommend your squires to follow the path of the Master of Arms or knights?
I never said, there's been some that I think, if they become elevated, they're going to want to become knights, which is, fine with me. I believe in alternative lifestyles. If that's what they want to do, I mean, I'd always think I taught them better, but you know how it is with kids. You can't always know how they're going to end up. Yeah. So far, I've only ever had one that was elevated. A lot of my guys have been in for years, and somebody said to me once, what the problem, Pat, is all you guys, because they all have the senior fighting award in the kingdom. They're all really good fighters. He goes, the problem is your guys don't want to get elevated. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, they're afraid that you won't let them camp and hang with you anymore if they do that. And they just all love to camp with you and have such fun around with you that they're afraid that you're going to make them leave. So I've only had one, and he became a master. So I'm still batting 1,000 right now. We'll see what happens if the next one comes up. Might go 50%.
So, who is your proudest squire right now?
Who's my what?
Proudest squire.
My proudest? That's a good question. The one I'm the most proud of, or that they're the most proud of themselves? Because I have a lot of ego squires. That would be a much more difficult question.
No, the most proud of that. He's up there, you're proud and joy.
I'm gonna say that is Bruca. That's our Saracen. Bruca's been around for years, left for 10 years. That's why a lot of my guys, they left for a decade and then returned when they were older. He doesn't have athleticism that a lot of the other guys have. So he has to work really, really hard at his skills and his basics. And you know what? And he does it over and over and over. And he always has a smile on his face. Even when he gets an ass kicking. He's still happy when he comes off that floor. And I think, that makes me the most proud of him because I don't remember smiling that much when I lost fights. I was more like, oh, let me get my head what I do wrong. Let me go back and kick this guy's ass next week.
Yeah. Every loss is an opportunity to learn. That's how I take it. So.
It is, but he just does it with like just such a love in his heart. Like you can't fault him. You just want to hug him.
Yeah. People get that from me as well. That's hilarious. What's the funniest thing?
Or the ass kickings.
Oh, come again?
I said they get the hugs from you or the ass kickings.
There you go.
It can be both.
Oh, maybe both. So, what's the funniest thing that happened to you as a master of arms?
Funniest thing that has ever happened to me as a master. My very, very first event as a master was 3 weeks after my elevation. It wasn't a large event. It was actually our local group. But I was there with my new mint baldric. But because I started in the SCA late. I came in going on 30. So I already had a little gray hair in the sides of the beard and everything. So I kind of looked like I had been a master a lot longer. And there was this very young fighter. It was like his first event. And he was just constantly, Master Padraig, hey, Master Padraig, hey, Master Padraig, hey, Master Padraig. Like I'd never heard it so much. It was my first time hearing it. And finally, I suggested he go do something that was horrendously dumb and would probably get him in a lot of trouble. Like just to get rid of him, I suggested it, not thinking he would listen to me.
Oh no.
And he ran to go do the thing. And I had to send 3 of my guys after him to go tackle him before he got to the queen.
No.
Hey, I live up to my master reputation. It wasn't something bad, but it was going to be something kind of fresh, We'll do this to the queen. I knew the queen. She was a good friend of mine. So, yeah, she did have a sense of humor, but he was just like, okay, and just ran. I'm like, oh, that's bad. He actually thought I was serious. Go catch him quick. So, yeah, I hadn't quite learned the, be careful what you say. You're smarter than you were yesterday, but now they listen to you today.
Throughout the years of experience, what kind of advice can you give a new fighter when he first starting out as an SCA tournament fighter?
Well, usually at a practice when there's a new guy there, I'm first going to work with him. When he loses his fight, I give him the absolute best thing in the world to say to him. Get up, move faster, hit harder. I stole that from Remo Williams. So it was from a movie. It's a quote from a movie, but it works in every circumstance. And then of course, then I go work with them after. But they just get them up, and they dust them off. All right, get up, move faster, hit harder. Let's go. Keep going. The thing is, don't quit. It's hard. This is not easy what we do. It's not necessarily smart what we do. I stand in front of people who are bigger than me and I let them try to hit me with sticks. And, it's going to hurt. This game hurts. There's pain involved, there's sweat, there's sometimes a little blood involved. And if it's not for you, then it's not for you. That's fine. It's not for everybody. This game is hard. Usually once I say that to a 19-year-old, this game is hard, maybe it's not for you, they stay forever. Well, because now, they're gonna prove me wrong that they couldn't hang in there. But I'm trying to be serious that if this is something you want to do, you don't have to do it. Because the rest of us are dumb enough to do it over 30 years doesn't mean that you have to join in.
Yeah. Uh, as a master, what incident did you have to stop or prevent?
Hear you. Can't hear you.
Oh, as a master, what incident did you have to stop or prevent from others?
I think sometimes we tend to step in and try to put the king in his place. Because, a long time ago when I was taught that, the knights serve the king, but the masters protect the people from the king. And because I don't feel we're necessarily the yes man. And I'm not saying every knight is like that, but sometimes, especially back in the old days, they were the king's man. And I think sometimes because we're not, we got to stand there and say, hey, look, you're not listening. This is kind of dumb. And, you cannot listen to me, but, I've got 60 guys that follow me right here. And the next melee, when you're looking that way and we're over here, it's going to hurt. So I want to think about it. But other than that, most of the time, I usually have to stop myself from saying stupid things. That's what I do the most as a bastard on preventing myself from just saying what I think at the moment.
So, this is pretty much all the questions I have for you. You kind of like went right away. So, I'm really impressed. The last guest, he just talks like, oh, here, down there. No, but
That's my job.
Yeah. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions. It's a great honor.
I was glad to be here. I wasn't sure what the questions were going to be. You didn't ask me the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me is.
It's not too late. So now that you brought it up, what is the most embarrassing?
I opened the door to that questioning, Your Honor. I will tell the story. This is my most horrible Mastodon story. But I did it to one of my squire brothers. So we were at Penzic, and we're along the edge of the field. And everybody's got their little pop-up pavilions because it's going to be the Champions Day. And I'm talking to Edwin B. S. Slayer, who was my senior squire brother, who taught me everything I know about being chivalrous. But he won't take responsibility for it. There's somebody sitting there, and everybody's got their chairs all set up, and there's a guy, a friend of his, he goes, hey, I want you to meet my friend so-and-so. Just use the first name. And the guy kind of turns and looks at me. And he goes, oh, you got one of those sideways belts. And I was like, oh, one of those. Let me explain to you about my sideways belt. You see, it runs like this. And everything below this is a leg shot. I said, and this, my friend, is my penis. And when I did that, I leaned forward and realized I was talking to the king of Atlantia, who was sitting in state, but he had his crown hanging on the back of the throne, and his queen was sitting right next to him. And thank God she was turned the other way talking to somebody. And I realized it, and I went, I beg your forgiveness, Your Majesty. And he just looked at me and goes, yeah, Ed, I like your friends. So I did show my penis to the King of Atlantia.
Was it a glaive? Because you're kind of compensating, right?
Yeah, this is why I always fight with the 7-foot glaive. Yeah. Think about it next time I shove it in your face.
Yeah. Like, oh. Oh, well, thank you so much for your time.
But great to be here. Nice to see Corwin again.
Yeah.
Always good to see you, my friend.
Most we've ever spoken face to face.
We will. I promise. Sometime soon.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
I think the next big war that is happening is
Zippy, right? Zippy's going to win that crown. This crown coming up.
I don't know. You know, Zippy looked really tight at Great Western.
I hear he's doing well. I got to get up to the practice he's at.
There's got to be somebody in my line that actually wins a crown. You know.
Look, you can win a crown or you can be cool. You can't be both.
I don't know about that. You got to remember when I got elevated, the other two Masters at Arms were pissed off because I'd taken away their alternate title, which was Duke.
Oh.
The other two were both already Dukes, and then they elevated me, and they're like, "Well, damn! Now we can't use the alternate title anymore." I'm going to ask a question. If they wanted to change the title of your order from Master to Knight Errant, how would you feel about it?
Is this going to be
an interesting conversation?
Is this going to be decided by combat?
I don't know.
I think I'd make them fight me every form.
Yeah.
If I can keep Master of Arms. I don't like that title for us.
Yeah.
I think because it harkens back to the young guy first going out. And a lot of the Masters, that's not us.
That's true.
It can't be Doctorus.
Yeah.
The teacher and I know they always want to change it. They don't like it. They don't want to call us Master.
I gotta say, I feel uncomfortable when people call me that, but I've always had the same response. The only people I ever make call me by my titles are the ones that piss me off.
Well, no, the only time it ever came up to me is some night was, feeling his oats. I think we were at Pentagon apart and he was kind of in his cups. And he looked at me and he's like, "Your wife calls me sir." I said, "Your wife calls me master."
Yeah.
So maybe you should drink.
I'm going to say this is one piece of Master culture that always fascinates me. It's like you would think that they would figure out that, like, every time they elevate somebody to the chivalry, the knight immediately thinks he's got a new way to poke the Masters. And we've always seen it 100 times, I didn't tell this story when you guys were interviewing me before, but Master Cadu, who was up in Artemisia when he got elevated, and I had some really long conversations before he got elevated. And one of the things I told him was, look, the knights like to play the dozens.
Oh, yeah.
But you should not tolerate this because it's boring after, it's kind of a half-wit thing the first time and it geometrically progresses from there. I said, so I'm going to share with you my best response ever. And he was like, oh, yeah, sure. I said, when they look at you and they say, oh, you're wearing your belt sideways, the proper response is to deadpan look them straight in the eye and say, well, belts are for carrying purses, baldricks are for carrying swords.
It's true.
And the weirdest thing, you use that line on a baby knight who thinks it's fun to beat up on the Masters, and they just kind of get this look on their face and they walk away. And it's a little brutal, but she does not play well with others.
No, that's most Masters. I think we all got 4s on that in school.
Frederick of Holland, His Grace Duke Frederick, and I were sitting at a tournament a couple of years ago now. And I made some comment about, knights and masters and all the rest of it. And he said, well, you know what this means, Corwin? And he ran his hand down his baldric. And I said, well, yeah, it means you're a master at arms. He said, no, it means does not play well with others. Which I've been actually tempted to make him a baldric that says that.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I may do it just to yank his chain. He finally quit fighting last year, or 2 years ago. So.
I have a really good Frederick of Holland story.
Okay.
So, we're at Penzic, and in the woods battle, and I finished way up in the back corner, jumped in the fight with Jade and some of the guys from the west, and I kind of sat down for a while. She should never do. At the end of that battle, she stopped walking back, and I sat, and then I realized I was kind of sitting too long. I needed to go. And I was the last person coming out of the woods. And I'm walking through the woods, and it was a hot year, so it was dusty as hell. It was just like the dust was like a mist in the woods from the guys running around. And as I'm walking downhill to where I know the exit is, up out of the mist, this wizened, white-haired old master was walking towards me, cracked armor, yellowed baldric, carrying his weapons, looking bedraggled. I see him. I stop in front of him. And I'm like, and it has happened at this war, Master Furl and I decided that whenever we would meet another Master of Arms, we would introduce ourselves. Because there's so few of us. So when I saw him, because I didn't realize who he was, I said, good master, may I have your name? My name is, Master Padraig. I'm from the East. And at this war, my master and I, former master and I were on a quest to meet as many masters at arms as we could. And of course, I am, Master Frederick of Holland. He called me Flea. And I'm like, oh my God, Your Excellency, you are like the father of all the masters in the East, because he came out as a master. He was the first one that came out. He said, it's an honor to meet you. And I shook his hand and that. And we got done talking. And then I picked my stuff up and I started walking back down the hill. And he walked past me. He's going up the hill, like into that corner where there's nothing. And then I realized after like 7 steps that he's going the wrong way. So I turn around to tell him that the exit's the other way. And he's gone. In the mist. So I was sure, as I'm now walking out by myself all the way back to my camp, that I just met the ghost of Frederick of Holland. And when I get to camp, I'm going to find out he passed away the day before. So that was my story on Frederick of Holland. But then he showed up in my camp again the next night. Because we were having a circle, and we were singing and entertaining, and he came to the gate, and he came in, and he hung out, and we swapped songs together, and we had a great time. That was my first story. I was sure I had met the ghost in the woods.
Wow. I'll have to remind him of that.
So this concludes the recording of this Q&A session.